Nikola Jovic is entering his fourth season with the Heat, but remains a mystery for fans and the team alike. What will his role be next season? Is he a possible starter, or will he be fighting for any playing time at all? We'll answer that on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. For daily content on the Heat, click that subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure you're following us on your podcast app. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins on FanDuel. Have a great show for you today. We have a sneaky option for Miami's answer at backup center. Plus, we go into another round of Locked Off Heat, where we answer your questions about anything not related to the Miami Heat. But let's start here because we were talking yesterday about whether or not we thought Nikola Jovic had the inside track on a rotation spot, David. It ended up being a bit of a debate, frankly, more of a debate than I had expected. So we thought we could continue that conversation here today. You seem less sure about Nico's role next season than I do, though.
Yeah, I don't see that anything's changed much. Like when you're looking at the front court, who's gone from last year's roster that would suddenly clear the space for him to play? Is it Kyle Anderson? Is it? Yep. That's it? You think Kyle Anderson's departure, a guy who was basically a salary cap throw-in, is the one that kept Nico on the bench? I mean, I know he was injured for part of that too.
Yeah, so it was his injury that kept him on the bench. When he was healthy, he was out there, no?
Yeah, but there were minutes there. There were games where he wasn't sniffing the floor at all. And so to me, it's just, I don't know that he's necessarily penciled in for a rotation spot. I think that's still very much in the air. I assume he's going to be healthy. Look, and I love Jovic's potential. I've been about that from day one in terms of what he can bring as, in my opinion, a point forward. So I thought he had that capability. He just has to do it more consistently, not just in terms of his perimeter shooting, but also his defensive ability, because that has been what's kept him off the floor for most of the time, is that he's not an excellent rebounder despite his size. He's not a great defender, but he made strides in that department, and that's why he started earning those spots. We saw him as a starter at the beginning of the season. That experiment didn't last very long, and it didn't work very well, and then he basically fell out of the rotation. And once he did come back, that's when he started to make an impact. He was playing his best basketball this season, unfortunately, and that's when he got hurt. So who knows what the rest of the season would have been like. But I don't know that it's necessarily a guarantee that he's going to get that kind of playing time, especially if you're going to lean into a Kel'el Ware, Bam Adebayo starting front court.
So before I get to my point, I want to play this clip. It's Erik Spoelstra talking about Nico in Las Vegas with a bunch of us in a scrum.
A unique skill set. You know, part of his strength is making other players better. Some of it is in these plays in between that are unscripted. That's oftentimes where he's at his best. He also can get lost, like any player, if you're playing strictly in those areas where you can get lost in the sauce. So he can play on the ball, but we have a lot of guys that can play on the ball. So there's going to be a balance, you know, right there. You look at where Nico was as a rookie to where he's becoming right now. It's night and day. The work ethic and his consistency of approach every single day. I think the last 2 summers have been really good because it's been a strong balance of the Miami Heat player development program and then going to play for his national team. I think that's helped his maturity. You know, the first year he was a token starter on the World Championships, and then any moments of truth he wasn't playing. Coaches will play who they think can help you win. Last year he was probably the 8th or 9th, 10th man. Biggest stage. So my challenge to him was break in the rotation. Make that Hall of Fame coach earn your trust. Nico had a really good June and late May. He's put on some strength too. He's just going to come back looking different. You know, every year he comes back stronger, bigger. I'm excited about his improvement.
So that's sort of what I was hinting at yesterday, and when I was talking about how excited Erik Spoelstra seemed about Nikola Jovic. Now, how much of that is lip service? How much? Spo isn't the kind of coach to come out and just do lip
Gush.
service and just shower a player with compliments for no reason. When he says night and day where he was as a rookie, really excited to see how he comes back from Eurobasket. And by the way, I think so. Jovic is going to be part of this Eurobasket run. Heat coaches do seem excited about what he's going to be able to do there and what he's going to look like next season. But I think we're going to learn a lot. But let's also keep in mind, Nico came into last year off of participating with the national team, the Serbian national team. Remember, he sprained his ankle.
Yeah.
And he came into camp with a boot. And the Heat were pretty upset about that. And I think that's why some people were wondering whether or not they were going to allow him to go back overseas and play overseas for his national team again this summer. But they, like Spo just said, they're excited about that opportunity for him, and they think that he can get better. They liked when Goran Dragic was out there doing that kind of stuff too. And they always thought that, hey, international guys, when they go play in that kind of context, they tend to come back to us better than what they were. You just hope that they don't get hurt. And obviously Nico got hurt last year. But as long as he's not hurt and he goes into training camp, this to me is a guy who we could debate starting, coming off the bench, whatever. You seem unsure about whether or not he's going to be a part of the rotation. Based on where the roster is right now, David, I think it's pretty clear that we're looking at a 3-man front court rotation of Nico, Bam, and Kel'el Ware. Bam's obviously starting. I think Nico's competing with Ware for the starting job next to Bam Adebayo. I just think that's where it is. And the coaching staff is going to have to see a lot more from Kel'el Ware. They were thrilled with how he responded after Erik Spoelstra called him out during that same press conference. They're also very excited to see what Nico looks like in camp.
I like what Spo said there about his participation in Euro League there in terms of it's his maturity that gets a boost because he plays with older international players. We know about European basketball. These national teams consists of people who have been in a part of the national pipeline for a long time. And so they're veterans. They might not be NBA veterans, but you get somebody in their early 30s, mid 30s that has been around the program for a long time. And they just help these younger guys like Nico learn the game and adapt and expand what they're capable of doing. And so I think in terms of what Nico is looking to develop over the summer, just his approach to the game and how he can incorporate all the versatile skills that he possesses and continue to develop them, I think is a big part of that. And look, 2 years ago, he had such a fantastic summer. And he really showed a lot as an up and coming international player. And we were both very optimistic about what he would be able to bring to the Heat. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out. And again, injury and inconsistency has just kind of kept him in that role that he's had over the last couple of seasons. So I am cautiously optimistic after hearing that clip from Spo. I get why you're a little bit more enthusiastic or a little bit more of a believer in terms of him being a part of the rotation, because the way Spo does talk about him, as you said, that's not typical of Spo. He's not going to say those kinds of things just to kind of blow smoke or just to mislead media members or anything like that. That's him voicing a strong opinion on behalf of the front office. Go ahead.
If I can ask you something, because you seem skeptical about him being able to even get a rotation. Like, who on the roster is getting power forward minutes outside of Bam?
Yeah. Kishad Johnson would be the only other option, and he'd have to have a
and he's not
camp.
Yeah, he's gonna have to come out looking like PJ Tucker, and I don't really see that in the cards for him. So, Haywood Highsmith can play some minutes there. They can obviously go small with Wiggs at the 4, but I don't know. They're not going to start games that way, and I don't think they're even going to. Maybe they plan for a few minutes here and there, but that's sort of where I'm at with Nico. And look, he has to work on things. Like the 3-point shot is there. The ball handling stuff that Spo was talking about in that clip is there. What Nico needs to work on is making an impact on a possession-to-possession basis, with or without the ball in his hands. If he doesn't have the ball in his hands, then he has to be impacting it as a floor spacer and as a rebounder. Defensively, he has to be good every single time out there. That's where Nico needs the most improvement, is the possession-to-possession, making an impact consistently. That's where it is for him. And that's how you, by the way, play a lot of minutes in Eurobasket, right? That's how you end up playing at the end of some of those games in what this team likes to call winning time. I do think, like I said, I think that he's going to be competing with Ware for the starting job next to Bam in training camp.
That's where I'm kind of stuck, though. That's why I'm kind of stuck. So I was going to ask you about that because, and I don't mean to interrupt, but like rotation player, that's pretty clear. But I just think that unless Ware stinks really badly or has shown a setback, especially in terms of his maturity and approach.
Right. If he looks
I
like he
think-
'd the first couple weeks of summer league, in other
Right.
words.
We're like, he just doesn't care. It's like,
Right.
oh, it's summer, training camp. What's the big deal? Spo doesn't appreciate that kind of
Right.
attitude. You got to work. You got to go in there looking like you're ready, like you're in the second week of training camp, not the first day of training camp.
Yeah, I think Ware has the inside track, but he needs to earn it. They're not just going to give it to him, and that's why I say Nico's going to compete with him. I do think if the Heat had their way, Ware would go into training camp and win the job.
Yes.
No question about it. But it's not a guarantee because, as we know, they're not going to just hand stuff to him. And if he approaches it the way he approached the first couple of summer league games, then it's going to be Nico's job, or they're going to go in another direction.
Is that the best course for Miami? I mean, maybe that's a whole other question that to kind of lead off into. Would starting Kel'el or Nico help Miami in terms of if you get the best version of Ware or the best version of Nico, which one of them is going to be more helpful in the starting lineup alongside?
That's worth exploring. Let's put a pin in that. We'll talk about that on the other side of this. Plus, we have talked a lot about the need for a backup center. Probably not going to factor into this part of the conversation, but the Heat seem to be really high on somebody already on their roster. So we'll also talk about that next year on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're about baseball under the lights or golf out in the green, or just high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make things a little bit more interesting? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Listen, it's easy to use. It's fast to pay out, and it makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. And there is new daily promotions that make the most of your experience. Whether you're watching a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride to the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like you're part of the action. So if you're new to FanDuel, well, guess what? This is the best time to join. And you can bet just $5, and you get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's $5 bet, and you get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today, or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Be right back.
You asked before we went to break there whether the Heat would be better off with Ware or Nico winning that starting job next to Bam. I think it depends on their goals. If they want defense behind Tyler Hero and Norm Powell, then I think it makes sense to go with Bam and Ware, provided that Ware, takes a step up defensively there. But if they want to play fast and have more ball handling on the floor, then I think it could make some sense to go with Nico there also. And frankly, defensively, I know the numbers are what the numbers are with Ware and Bam on the court together. They're very good defensively together. They're not nearly as good with Ware by himself without Bam, which that also factors into your rotation planning and your starting lineup plans too also. But, there's a case to be made that when Nico is really engaged defensively, he's as impactful next to Bam as Ware is next to Bam, just because Bam is so great by himself at that center spot. And they're a little bit more, if they want to switch everything, you could do that more with a Bam Nico lineup than you can with a Ware Bam lineup. I don't know that they want to do that. Again, it just depends on sort of what Erik Spoelstra has decided what kind of team he wants to be after taking some time to think about things this summer.
Yeah, I was even thinking right now, is it possible to maybe keep both in the starting lineup? Because then,
you go Nico, Bam, Ware.
Yes, and alongside
and bring Wiggins off the bench.
I would have suggested Powell off the bench. To be honest with you,
that's not enough ball handling.
Hero, Wiggins, Bam, Nico. Yeah, with Nico as a ball handler too, I think you've got an option there.
Maybe.
Hero, Wiggins as a 2. Well, again, you've got shooting at. Actually, you have all 5 of them are capable of hitting the 3-point shot. Are they consistent at it? No.
Are they?
But all 5
are they respected out there? Not really. Nobody's going to guard Nico. Nobody's going to guard Bam. Nobody's going to guard Ware.
No, I suppose not in that sense. I don't know how much that changes even with Powell in the starting lineup. I mean, but I guess you have to pick your poison between Hero and Powell. So there's lots of options there, and then this is why you and I are both bullish following the Powell acquisition, is that it allows for different permutations, different lineup changes, and things of that sort. So you can go big, you can go small, you can go fast. There's a lot that you can do by adding a top scorer in Powell.
Yeah. It's why I think ultimately they'll settle on a 3-man rotation in the front court between Bam, Ware, and Nico. And we'll see who wins the starting job. Again, I think it's probably Ware with the inside track here, but I would not rule anything out. And at the end of the day, I frankly don't know how much it matters. It's going to be those 3 guys that are getting the bulk of the minutes there. That said, they still have a need at backup center. We've talked a lot about the big man rotation, the depth at center. I don't think we've done a bigger conversation on the one backup big already on the roster, and that's Vlad Goldin, who he goes undrafted, and the Heat, within minutes of the draft being over, signed him to a 2-way contract right there. This is a guy that they had wanted. They worked with his agent to make that happen, and they really liked him. So here's a quote from Summer League coach Eric Glass. He goes, quote, "Vlad was really good for us. He plays so freaking hard out there. He plays so physically. You'd love to have him on the floor even longer, but he goes so hard. Sometimes he burns himself out. That's why we love him." End quote. Just being around the team in Vegas, like they really like this guy. He's on a 2-way contract, so he's only allowed 50 games of eligibility. I would imagine he probably, because he's on a 2-way, goes up and down between the G League and the NBA squad. He's also not eligible to play in the playoffs. I don't know that the Heat are thinking that far ahead right now. I just know that they like him, and it wouldn't shock me if he got a few minutes here and there, if he is indeed the only backup center on the roster when the season starts.
What did you see from him in Vegas and the few games that you were able to catch up?
The physicality. Like I mean, he's as tall as Kel'el.
Yeah,
and he's bigger.
He's a legit 7-footer.
Yeah, he's strong. And he's
stronger than Ware, I'd say.
Oh, for sure. It's not close. And he does all of his work near the rim, which I like. He's not very versatile. He took whatever it was, like 30 something threes. I think he was 11 of 33. I think I have that right, in college last year at Michigan. I don't think that that's part of his game, and I don't think that's the plan. But he's a decent free throw shooter. There's definitely some touch there, but I think he's got really good touch near the basket within like that 5 to 6, 7 foot area, and plays really hard. Good rebounder. Just got a nose for the ball and just committed to doing stuff near the basket, which his team really needs.
Is he that much better or worse than Omer Yurtseven?
Yeah, I think the Heat obviously have been looking for whether it's Yurtseven or Orlando Robinson or these guys, like these just really big hulking centers. Yeah, I think they've kind of gone through them. I guess the difference here is, well, I guess they did sign. No, Orlando Robinson was in the G League first, and so was Omer, right? Did they sign those guys to 2-way deals right away, or did they brought them into Exhibit 10s and then they ended up in the G League for a minute? I don't know. It's a good question. They've obviously cycled through these guys and have not done a good job, but they are very high on. I don't remember them talking about one of them like Glass was talking about Goldin there.
I mean, Yurtseven was on the roster. He wasn't on the 2-way, and I think
he eventually got on the roster. I'm just saying, like right away, where was he?
Yeah, I think they did talk him up. I can't recall exactly how he was. I think he was a training camp invite, and then they signed him to a deal. But I might be mistaken about that. Either way, though, the idea was he brings legitimate size and things of that sort. And I think they're looking at Goldin doing the same thing. And I just wonder, again, we talked about rotational wing players and how they are going to struggle because there's not a lot. And we talked about this in terms of Keshad Johnson. Like, what's the elite skill that he brings? And so for Goldin, yes, he's tall. That's great. Yeah. But if he athletic enough to maximize that height and be able to make an actual positive impact out in the court against NBA players, because it seemed like he struggled a little bit even in summer league. And if you're struggling in summer league, well, then you're not going to be able to play against actual pros.
Right. He wasn't dominant. He didn't make one of the all summer league teams, whatever that's worth. I do like he did get better as summer league went on. His best game in summer league was in Miami's summer league finale. He had 18 points, 7 of 10 shooting, 10 rebounds, 4 blocks in that game. He shot almost 67% on 2-point field goals, good rebounding numbers. He was a plus 41 in his 105 minutes.
Yeah.
Again, it's all G League stuff, but you got to do it somewhere. So yeah, I don't know what he doesn't have an elite skill set, but is he an NBA ready rebounder right away? I mean, the NBA size is already there, and it still really matters to just be really tall and big. Like that is an NBA skill. I think he's an NBA rebounder. I think he can walk in and grab like a couple of rebounds in 7 or 8 minutes if Bam or Ware are in foul trouble or something like that, like, but I don't, I'm just saying, like, he's the only big on the roster right now.
Yeah,
We're probably going to see him play.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the invariable 21-12 game 5 of the preseason versus Minnesota, where everybody's like, oh, why isn't he starting?
Oh, that's great. What? Yeah. Why isn't he starting? Should we trade Bam? Like, are we ready to just trade Bam and start Goldin?
Because he went up against the third guy on the bench for whatever team there is in game 5. That's it. Always
that was a real conversation, wasn't it? When Yurtseven,
Orlando Robinson, and Yurtseven, they had big games.
Yurtseven was the original. Was it during the COVID year where he ended up playing a bunch of games, and then
he was just
he averaged like 10 and 10 for like 3 straight games. Everybody was like, we could probably just trade Bam and start this guy.
Yeah, and he was talking about. Well, remember he was stretching the floor. That was the option. In camp, they went to the Bahamas that 1 year, and then when they came, they had talked about working them together, and then he gets hurt right before the preseason started, and we never got a chance to see it.
And then he ended up in Utah for a little bit.
One of the biggest what-ifs in franchise history.
We'll see what happens with Vlad Goldin. Meanwhile, can we relate to Stephen Colbert? Locked Off Heat is next. All right, it's another day. It's another episode featuring our new segment, Locked Off Heat, a new segment where we discuss anything other than the Miami Heat. Thanks to everybody who continues to send in questions for this segment. Already very popular, David, so we're going to continue doing this. But Billy Kuhn writes in, sparked by the whole Stephen Colbert CBS/Paramount debacle, do you ever feel limited with your coverage because you're part of a bigger network? Curious about how much feedback or freedom you guys have when making each episode. Before we jump into that, like, just the Stephen Colbert thing, we're not a news show. I don't necessarily know that we need to break down everything that happened there, but they are canceling the Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Some people think it might be related to some things that he had to say about Trump, like a few days before they made the announcement. They are canceling not just Colbert's show, but just the Late Show in general, which obviously has a 30-year history, and Letterman and all that kind of stuff over there on CBS. So, and people think that it might also have something to do with not just the comments that Colbert has made about Trump, but also the ensuing merger that CBS is trying to make. CBS or Paramount, CBS's parent company, is trying to make right now, and whether or not they can get that passed. So there's a lot there. But in terms of the censorship part of it, David, we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It has 1 million shows, bunch of employees, all this stuff. We are very much in charge of this show with almost so little oversight that I'd almost be worried about it.
Yeah. Perhaps you're giving us too much slack for us to hang ourselves with. Yeah.
Right.
No, I mean, I've never felt any kind of pressure to it's just, you know what? You guys know your markets, you know your team better than anybody else. And that's been the edict from day one. I mean, that's why they hired us. It's like, there are voices out there, and we respect yours, and we like yours and what you say about your team. And that's what this network has always been about, is you want to have somebody who knows the team, whether it's the history of the team, the present or the future, or just keep your pulse on your finger on the pulse of the fan base. You have to be able to present these things. And there are people across the spectrum, whether they're longtime broadcasters or people that are just kind of starting out and everywhere in between. And we've been doing this for 9 years now. I mean, I can't believe it. It's been 9 years, but at no point in time I've ever felt like they have restricted what we say.
I'm trying to think of times where it was even a discussion.
It was twice that I can recall.
Okay.
Twice. One, no use of profanity, and I'm probably more guilty of that than you are. That's it. Yeah. And then another one was, I think they kind of, I think given certain political climates a few years ago, they probably said, maybe you don't make that like a regular topic on the show as often, and stuff like that. Because
it was the stick to sports movement that was happening when ESPN was a little under the gun about stuff, and we had a meeting as a network at that point. Was it a meeting, or it might have just been an email? It would,
yeah, I think it was actually.
It was, where it was just like, hey, like we're a sports channel. Let's stick to sports, and we pretty much did. Although I was on Locked On Warriors at the time, and I did like a whole series on Black Lives Matter and COVID and interviewing like former Warriors players who had a lot to do with that movement in the Bay Area.
I remember.
Not this past Black Lives Matter movement, but like in Oakland, like years and years and years ago. And I thought that was really just fascinating in terms of being a journalist and performing those interviews. But I got no pushback on doing that. In fact, and Warriors fans seemed to really like it when I was doing it. So that was it. And then there was one other thing. Oh, when Matt Gaetz called us out.
Oh.
That happened a few years ago.
Yeah.
Matt Gaetz pulled a clip from our show and just went at us online, and we had a conversation about whether or not we wanted to respond. We talked to the network a little bit about it just to get their advice, and they were like, look, if you guys don't want to respond, we're not going to force you to respond. And that was sort of it. Like it was mostly left up to us.
Ironically, again, same Matt Gaetz showing the same kind of two-facedness that he has as a political figure, saying at one point years before this, love this show, leaving like a random comment saying how much he loved this show. Like this was somebody who logged into iTunes as Matt Gaetz and wrote about how much he loved Locked On Heat. A couple years later, I said I didn't want Jonathan Isaac on this team, and he's like, "Why don't you want Jonathan Isaac?"
Yeah, he just went after you for not wanting Jonathan Isaac on the roster. That was it.
Yeah.
Last question here on Locked On Heat from another Locked On Heat insider. By the way, if you want to join the Locked On Heat insider community, the link is always in the show notes below every single episode. You could join. It's free for 14 days, $5 a month after that. We got a bunch of people signed up there. You have an opportunity to ask us questions, not only for Locked Off Heat segments, but for mailbag questions that are related to the Miami Heat, for post-game questions during the season, and just to interact with us one-on-one. And sometimes we just share some intel and stuff. Like when I was in Vegas, I shared a bunch of stuff that I had gotten from Vegas on the ground there and in there as well. But this insider writes in, another question would be, what hobbies do you have that we non-Heat people wouldn't know about? David, what hobbies do you have?
I've got a 6-year-old. I don't know how much time I have for hobbies anymore. No, spending time with him is my main hobby. Aside from that, reading is a big thing that I love to do, and I have loved to do that for a long time. I don't spend as much time with it. Books, comics, online articles and news things. Whatever you can find. I'd love reading. And yeah, comic book collecting, movies, TV, pretty standard stuff. I don't have anything random. Like I don't know how that.
Yeah, I don't have a cool hobby. Like people have cool hobbies. Like David Locke, the CEO of this company, goes like skiing. He's skiing like every other day.
Well, he lives in freaking Utah. I mean, what are you going to do?
But even if I lived in Utah, I wouldn't go skiing every day.
Yes, my hobby would be drinking indoors.
Right now, my hobbies are basically drinking outdoors right now.
Well, that's what you do in Miami. That's it.
Right. I have a balcony and I like to hang out there with a cigar and a cocktail or a beer every once in a while. And I'm not a hobby person. I'm not a hobby guy. Like my hobby is hanging out with friends, having a couple of drinks, maybe smoking a cigar once a week, working out. I like to work out. That's what I like to do. I love listening to music, but I usually do that when I'm working out. So it's like two hobbies at once. But that's
an interesting thing, because I can't listen to music working out. I find that to be really distracting. I'm a psych. I'm one of those rare psychos that just got to like no headphones, no nothing. I just work out.
That's wild. Wait, so you're just on the treadmill or on a bench and you're just not listening? How is the music distracting?
I don't like focusing on that. I like focusing on what I'm doing, and that's what helps me.
Maybe you gotta listen to different music. What kind of music are you listening to at the gym? Have you tried listening to at the gym?
I've listened to everything, but I don't prefer it. I really don't. I don't even want to even deal with the distraction. To me, I'm locked in. When I lift, and that's all I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about anything else. I don't need to pump Metallica or whatever, just to get myself going. I've never done that, and I've been on and off a member of the gym for 30 years, and I just never really got into like the idea of listening to music. Never, at no point in time. I will listen to music during cardio, and at that point, just basically, I want something to distract me from the pain in my lungs and knees. So that's basically it. But other than that, no, I'm pretty fine without it.
I like music for cardio because I like to follow the beat, and that kind of gives me like a rhythm while I'm either walking or running. But I'm glad you're at least self-aware to know that is psychotic behavior. Like, you know, you're
Oh, yeah.
wrong, but you're
No, I
doing
wouldn't
it
say I'm
anyway.
wrong, but I recognize that people are like, "What is he doing? Just not listening to stuff." And
It's like, what's
I'm
the
one of those.
Seinfeld bit where Elaine's boyfriend is just
Oh, yeah.
stares ahead
Putty,
on
Putty
the
at
plane?
the airplane.
Putty?
He's like, "Yeah, you're just gonna stare right into space." Like, "Oh yeah, that's right."
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's a
Yeah,
3-hour
that's right.
flight. Yep. Yeah, I
Yeah.
got that. Yeah, that's right. It's so good. That's you at the
Funny.
gym.
That's me. That's me.
So yeah, when your breaks between sets, what are you doing?
Thinking
Just stare-
about what I'm thinking about today. I stare up and I think about what's happening, and then I just on to the
All
next. Yeah, seriously.
You
I should
guys
have
see
short
David at
rests in
your
between
local
sets.
gym. Don't go near him. He's a psycho.
I've seen at least 3 Locked On Heat listeners at my gym, and they all talk about what a great show it is.
I'm
But
surprised they even
I guess
approached you.
now they're like, "Oh, who's that psycho without the headphones?" I guess, you know.
Thanks
Hands
for
on hips, breathing hard there, and not even talking to everybody or listening to music. What's going on?
just heavy breathing, not talking to anybody.
You should have like
No
a
headphones in.
sheath, you know, nothing in it, but just like a sheath, just to create like questions about like what's going to happen next. You know, you never know.
You know what?
Never
It's
know.
better than recording yourself at the gym. I'll say that.
Oh, please.
And I realize I'm probably alienating a lot of listeners because it feels like it's a
man,
Miami
crowd.
thing more than any other
Yeah.
place where you just have to bring a tripod with you. It's ridiculous. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen today. For your second listen, find the Locked On NBA podcast, where there is no offseason. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.